Welcome to this lecture on monitoring guidelines, marine litter. My name is Mirco Haseler. I'm working at the Leibniz-Institute for Baltic Sea Research in Warnemünde, Germany. Today I would like to give you an overview about marine litter monitoring methods and why they are necessary. I will talk about beach litter monitoring and especially about two methods, the 100-meter method and the scent rake method. And this is then followed by conclusions. So first, what is marine litter? Marine litter is any persistent solid material that is entering the marine environment due to human activities. Most of it is plastic and it has negative impacts. So to protect the marine environment, there are many different international conventions for the Baltic Sea or the Mediterranean Sea, for example. And in all of these, marine litter and marine litter monitoring is considered a very important issue. So what is monitoring? Monitoring means the repeated measurement of a process in the environment to detect a trend in space or time. So for marine litter, this means we want to gather long-term data about the composition, the amount, sources, trends, and spatial distribution for litter on the water surface, on the seabed, and also on beaches. And based on this, it is possible then to calculate, for example, threshold values, to assess the negative impacts of marine litter, and to select mitigation measures to reduce the litter input. And long-term monitoring then is also needed to actually evaluate if these measures are effective or not. So, marine litter monitoring can be done in different marine compartments, for example, on the seabed, in the water column, on the water surface, or on the beach. And it can focus on litter in different size classes. So for example, micro litter, meso litter, or macro litter. In general, we can say that beach litter monitoring is most suitable for a large-scale monitoring approach because it can be conducted by volunteers on a broad scale over a long period of time at reasonable costs. And so we can gather a lot of data for different regions. So this is why I'm going to focus on beach litter monitoring today, and this monitoring methods I'm going to present are focusing on meso and macro litter. As I said, there are many different conventions for the protections of the different regional seas, and they are all together in the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, and here it was more or less agreed on a 100-meter method to monitor beach litter. And now I'm going to explain a little bit more in detail about that. So for all these different regional seas, there are general requirements and guidelines how to do beach litter monitoring. For example, from HELCOM for the Baltic Sea, from OSPA for the North Sea and the East Atlantic, for the Mediterranean Sea, and so on. In all these guidelines is written when exactly, where and how often you have to do beach litter monitoring, how to sample, how to count and analyze the litter. So if you want to have more information about that, it's written in these guidelines. And my focus today will be actually on the process of the survey on the beach and the litter analysis afterwards and what kind of problems might appear. So if we do our 100-meter survey for the first time, it is very important that we have a permanent reference point that we can find again. So from this reference point, we measure our 100-meter distance with a measuring tape. And then we investigate the area between the waterline and the back of the beach. So this reference point is very important that we always measure and investigate the same 100-meter stretch. If we start the monitoring and our first beach survey, we should do this shortly after high tide to avoid that this area is flooded by water. Then if we start picking up the litter, we should systematically walking up and down the beach with at least 2 people so that none of the area is missed. And as it is a naked eye approach where you just have a look on the beach, all the litter that you will pick up will be most probably macro litter larger than 2.5 centimeters because smaller litter is hardly to see. So you walk up and down the beach until you covered the whole area. Dangerous or suspicious looking items should not be picked up because that might be dangerous. So if you see something that might be dangerous, please call the police or the local authority responsible for the beach and let them know so that no other beachgoer might be hurt by this dangerous litter item object. It might be that there are quite large litter items appearing, like big pieces of nets, ropes, or tires that can't be removed. So please take a picture for the litter analyzers afterwards, that you remember that this big rope was there, and mark it with an edding or with a spray can so that you don't count it again when you do the next monitoring, maybe in 2 or 3 months. All the litter that is found on the beach, it is recommended that you pick it up, put it in a plastic bag, and write immediately down in your list of litter what it was. But this is not always possible. Some beaches are quite heavily polluted, so you might pick up hundreds or even thousands of litter pieces so that it is easier to do the litter analysis afterwards, somewhere else. If you want, you can determine the weight of the litter if that is reasonable for your monitoring approach, but consider that the pieces that you're picking up might be wet or full of sand, and this might distort the actual weight of the litter. One important thing is where to stop at the back of the beach. So it's quite easy, you start at the waterline, but where to stop at the end of the beach? Where do you stop your monitoring? We have here a picture from Monastir in Tunisia, and here it's quite easy. We have a well-defined waterline and this wall at the end of the beach. So you stop where the sand stops, and this is where your monitoring ends. It might be a bit more difficult if you have dunes like here. So here you also start at the waterline and your survey stops at the dune where the slope begins. You can also say that where there's the first vegetation appearing, there you stop your survey because this is considered already as a dune, and we only want to investigate the beach, not the dune. Here you can see a picture of a colleague working in Hammamet in Tunisia. And here we decided to work until this area. So we only covered the yellow area because here the red area is considered as blown out of dunes. So there is a little bit of vegetation and there's a slope. So we don't investigate the red area. And this is very important. So when you do your survey, you always want to investigate exactly the same area. So it is important that you have an exact boundary where you stop at the beach and what you consider as a dune. And you shouldn't change that, so always stick to the same area. Also very important is to know if the beach that you're investigating is cleaned, and if the beach is cleaned, how? Is it done professionally by cleaners who pick up the litter by hand, or is it done mechanically? Because this has a big impact on the quantity and also on the size of litter pieces you find. Even if the beach is not professionally cleaned, make sure that you know about maybe voluntary cleanups from NGOs, because this has a big impact on the amount of litter you find, and the date of the last cleaning needs to be known to actually calculate the litter fluxus rates. Some beaches are heavily polluted, as you can see here on the pictures. There are many cigarette butts or plastic bags, for example, and it might not be possible to investigate the whole 100 meter as it takes just too much time. Then you can minimize the area to 50 meter. You should try to do this 50 meter if the beach is very polluted, and then extrapolate the results to 100 meter. So as I said, it's often hard to pick up all the litter, especially if you have a lot of mesolitter, for example, cigarette butts in the size of 2 centimeter. If the beach is highly polluted, try, for example, to sample cigarette butts only in one of these 10-meter transects, and then also extrapolate the results if you do not have time to survey the whole 100 meter or 50 meter. So here you can see a video how we do that. First we measure the 100 meter distance, and then we walk along this area and systematically picking up all the litter. Sometimes you have to kneel down if there's a lot of litter, and you can see the two women in the background trying to organize themselves in a way that they systematically walking next to each other so that they don't miss any spots of the beach. So after the beach survey is done, you have to count and analyze the litter. So you bring all the litter somewhere where you have good light conditions, no wind and enough space, because you can see on the picture below it might be a lot of litter items. And then for the categorization, there's the joint list of litter categories from the MSFD that will help you to actually investigate the litter, because we have to record all litter items in a clear and harmonized way so that our results of our surveys are comparable to the results of other people and other beaches. This list of litter comes with the photo catalog, because the pieces of litter you might find on the beach, they show up in different types, colors and forms of degradation. So you have this photo guide, and here you can use it, for example, to see how plastic bottles might look like on the beach. So you have different pictures of all the litter items and a text explaining what kind of litter it is. This whole list is around 250 litter items and is very helpful for the identification of the litter items. So as you can see here on the picture, we put all the litter on the table and then sorted by plastic bags, plastic bottles and cigarette butts, for example. We count them and enter them in this list of litter. Make sure that you use this photo catalog, because some items are not very easy to identify. For example, you have to know if what you find on the beach is actually a lolly stick or a cotton bud sticks. There might be litter pieces like polystyrene pieces that are quite easy to identify, but there will be a lot of plastic pieces and plastic sheets or little pieces from shopping bags that are not that easy to identify. So if you once decided how to count and categorize them, maintain the system over your whole monitoring approach. So, and when all this litter is counted and entered in the list of litter, you can send this from your finished survey to the responsible person that is doing the data collection. Here you can see the video. We are trying to separate the litter in different categories, like for plastic bottles, plastic caps, and so on. I'm trying to collect all the cigarette butts here, and in the background, the colleague is collecting bottle caps. Now she's counting the bottle caps and put them in a plastic bag. And then she's going to the person who's writing down the numbers of bottle caps in the list. And here we also measure the weight. Another method I want to introduce you to is the sand rake method. This is also used at the same beaches as the 100-meter method. Here we have to focus on mesolitter, like cigarette butts, for example. And depending on what kind of beaches you investigate and what kind of litter size you're interested in, you can change the mesh size from 2 to 5 millimeters or even 10 millimeters if you want. The method itself is done right next to the area of the 100-meter area, so indicated with the black stripes here. And it looks like this. So first, you measure the distance from the waterline till the back of the beach, and then you start raking the sand from the first appearance of dry sand until the back of the beach. So the depth of the rake is around 2 or 3 centimeters. This is the penetration depth you try to reach. And here you can see that the area you are investigating is always divided in transects of 5 meters. So 5 meter length, the sand rake is half a meter wide, so we always have 2.5 square meters. And we try to rake at least one of these columns, so T1 until T4. And for each of these transects, the litter is collected separately in a plastic bag. And the minimum area we want to investigate with this method is 25 square meter if you have a high polluted beach, or 50 square meter if the beach is less polluted. This is how it looks like in the end. And then all the litter is removed and also analyzed. Here you can see I'm measuring the distance from the waterline to the back of the beach, then separate it in this 5-meter long transects and start raking. Here you can see it's quite windy, so make sure that no litter is blown out of the rake. So you rake this 5-meter long transect, collect all the litter that you found in the rake, put it in a plastic bag, and then for each transect, the litter is afterwards analyzed separately. So, what kind of beaches can you investigate with the sand rake method? The best is if you have very fine and dry sand, as you can see here on this picture. So, in this example, we can actually investigate the whole area between the waterline and the back of the beach, because there are no pebbles, rocks, or organic material. So you can see here, everything in yellow can be investigated. So this is a very suitable beach for the sand rake method. But there are other beaches that look like this, for example. This is less suitable because half of the beach is very wet and contains of compact sand, here indicated in red. That means that we can only investigate this yellow area. That yellow area is okay because there are also no pebbles, rocks, or organic material. But in general, we can say this beach is less suitable as only half of it can be investigated with the sand rake method. Here we have a beach that is full of pebbles and rocks, so therefore it's not suitable because the raking of the sand is already very hard, and even if you can rake it, you will have a lot of pebbles and rocks in the sand rake, so it's going to be hard to find litter pieces in the rake. So this beach is not suitable. It also might appear that you have a beach with a lot of organic material. So here we have dry sand and no rocks, actually okay, but a lot of accumulation. And this is also not suitable for the sand rake method. As you can see on the picture, all that organic material will clog the rake and it is impossible to really sieve the sand, neither to see litter in the sand rake. Here we have a beach that is wet, so the whole sediment is wet after rain, for example. The beach in general can be investigated, but here you have to come back another day when the sediment is dry, because wet sediment might clog the rake. If you still have to investigate it on the same day, try to change to a bigger mesh size, because then the rake is not clogged that fast. After you've done your survey with the sand rake, as I said, you analyze the litter per transect. You take all the litter pieces, make a picture of it, and then you write it down the same way as you did for the 100-meter method using this list of litter. Now we are coming to the conclusions. So, marine litter monitoring is important for the protection of our environment to gather quantitative marine litter data. Beach litter monitoring is very suitable for that data collection, and the 100-meter method and the sand rake method can be conducted by volunteers at reasonable cost and can gather long-term data over a long period of time for different regions. And if you do this method, the 100-meter method, if the beach is highly polluted, maybe you have to lower the area to a 50-meter long stretch. But make sure that you always investigate the same area. The sand rake method can help you to investigate smaller litter like mesolitter, but it is quite sensitive to wet sediment, pebbles, or organic material on the beach. And it is unlikely that small litter like cigarette butts can be picked up during the 100-meter method. So here the sand rake method might be more suitable. So depending on your goal of the monitoring, you can either use both of the method or decide on one of them. You need to have information about possible beach cleaning activities, as this is really important for your results. And for practical reasons, the litter analysis should be done afterwards. So don't do it at the beach because it might be windy, litter pieces might be blown away. So it's easier for practical reasons to do it somewhere else, not at the beach. And the litter analysis itself needs to be done in a clear and harmonized way. So use this online catalog and this list of litter that your results are comparable to the results of other people. Here, as I said, the joint list of litter and the photo catalog is very helpful. So I hope you enjoyed this e-lecture about marine litter monitoring and might be helpful for your next beach investigations. Thank you for your attention.